Hello and welcome back, and today I want to talk about mesh routers. I know this isn't the first time I've talked about mesh router solutions for home and business on this channel, but this is the very first time I'm probably going to talk about Wi-Fi 6, namely 802.11ax. What a delightfully unattractive word that is. Let's face it, for all the advances we've made in technology over the last 1, 2, 5 or 10 years, there's still no denying that a number of the most important and most interesting breakthroughs that arrive in the tech sector often spend a lot of their time with some of the worst names. Some of the best technology we've ever seen dies the death of 1,000 cuts because someone gets the name wrong. Even NAS, that I talk about on this channel quite a lot, took a long time before it reached such a simple concept as NAS, before they had a myriad of names. And the same thing goes for routers and modems and switches, and all of a sudden I know a number of you have just gone, oh god, this is going to be one of those videos. It really isn't. Today I want to talk about this Wi-Fi router. I want to talk about this mesh system where you can have more than one internet point in your home or business that can communicate at live times, and therefore as you're walking through your house get the very best connection as you're skipped between them. But because I've talked about mesh before, I am going to talk about the mesh the qualities of this device, and in both this hardware review and the software review and comparison video I'll be doing after this, I will talk a lot about mesh. But what I really want to talk about now and start up another series of videos is Wi-Fi 6. That is the new standard of wireless connectivity that's being pushed at the moment, and if you've bought the new iPhone or the new Samsung Galaxy or even some new laptops, you'll know that it arrives with a new style of Wi-Fi, and this new style, as I put it, is this new label, Wi-Fi 6, or as its technical term, 802.11ax. Now what it is a new faster means with which you can interact with the internet wirelessly on your device. Up until now, the majority of wireless devices that we use pale in comparison to an Ethernet connection. When you connect to a device, with the wire in the back, the RJ45, LAN cable if you will, you normally get traditionally 1 gigabit Ethernet, or 100 megabytes, or 1,000 megabits. With wireless connections, varying wildly the strength of the connection you get based on the home, business or hotel or coffee shop that you use. But traditional Wi-Fi has always lived somewhere in the 40, maybe 50 megs. If you go for some more enterprise level ones, you can get upwards of 100 or so. And then in some places, they've taken advantage of something called MIMO, I believe. Got the letters right there. And what that is multi-input, multi-output, and a bunch of other words. But the long short of it, before we get too technical, which is kind of mainly what I'm trying to avoid in this video, what it means is up until now, they used systems of multiple aerials communicating at once to up those speeds in certain areas using Wi-Fi. But the new AX standard of Wi-Fi does away with a number of those things and changes the signal strength of each aerial. And what that means is the data that's being handed out, both in terms of depth and in terms of breadth, is just better and faster, as well as devices that utilize Wi-Fi 6 as their available standard, as long as obviously supporting all the standards before it, means that both devices that utilize this new method of connection will be able to exchange data in this new form and therefore get those enhanced speeds. I will go into a little bit of detail about Wi-Fi 6 halfway through this video when we talk about the software of this device, and I do have rather than this skating over approach video, I have another video going live hopefully in the next week. I've already filmed it, going live, that will go into a lot more detail about precisely what Wi-Fi 6 is and how it differs to the internet connection you've got, and finally whether it's worth investing in it. But that opens us up neatly into this solution, which, let's face it, I'm 3 minutes into and I've barely acknowledged it. The reason this device is important, the ASUS, let's get the name right, the RT-AX92U, this Wi-Fi 6 mesh router, is precisely that. It is one of few Wi-Fi 6 enabled mesh solutions. And if you take a moment to look around, you'll see that a number of those available solutions are ridiculously expensive. I can't stress that enough, with some high units arriving like the Netgear Orbi series. That one is a 3-pack, and that arrives at around $700 to £100 for a 3-pack, depending on where you shop around. Now, there are more cost-effective solutions in mesh Wi-Fi, but again, the majority of them retail for about £500 to £600. With this twin pack arriving at about £300 to £350, so a noticeable degree lower in price for 2 units. I believe 1 unit on its own is about £200. And again, you'll have to convert that to dollars and euros depending on where you are in the world. But what you have is an affordable mesh Wi-Fi 6 solution that arrives at a price point that's pretty damn attractive. There are some standalone Wi-Fi solutions out there, Wi-Fi 6 router solutions, and all of those pretty much largely retail at about £200 to £300. I've got my best Wi-Fi 6 solutions of the year coming live in about 3 weeks' time, the NAS Compare article and the video, so do stay tuned for that. But I can tell you right now that the average Wi-Fi 6 router will set you back about £250 to £300 on its own, and although those standalone solutions are probably more powerful and bigger than one of these individually, getting these together is still better than that. Because let's take another ASUS product. Let's talk about the ASUS ROG. That is a beast. It's currently, for me, one of the most impressive Wi-Fi 6 routers out there, and that device retails for a pretty sum indeed. I think that's about £250, £300 for the standalone unit on its own. But these two here are a different kind of solution. Now, they promise, according to its own descriptions, that it can cover an enormous area. In fact, on the retail box there, you can see 370 square metre coverage. That's, a mid-range sized house with just these 2 mesh points, with one connected to a primary internet point. Maybe that's an ISP router that you convert into modem mode, or directly feeding the internet directly into the WAN. On top of that, the wireless access network, that the WAN is the point where your internet need to be communicated from the router. I'll try to steer away from the technical, but I apologise in advance if I trip myself up from time to time and have to explain one of those tech terms. But without further ado, let's get this box open and talk a little bit more about the hardware. Obviously, the design, the box is pretty impressive for a box that's got 2 routers inside. I apologise for the light going a bit mental there. Let's have a little play there and get that light sorted out there in the background. Hopefully that should improve things for you guys there. Now, this device here has got 2 of those inside. So again, it's pretty small for a box that's got 2 routers inside. If we get it out of there, we can have a good look inside. And remember, you don't necessarily need to use these in a mesh system. You can use these as completely separate mesh routers if you want. So if you and a friend were thinking of buying a mesh router, what you have here is an affordable 2 mesh router setup there right now. And sorry, that light is really starting to annoy me there. Let's ramp that up a little bit. Now, each one of them is pretty light indeed. They're pretty small, and again, they have got aerials that I'll show you in just a moment. If we get the other one out of there, we can take a good look. Maybe bring that closer to camera. As you can see, nice ASUS logo built into it. And we'll go through some of those ports and stuff in just a moment. Also, inside our retail box, we've got an impressive piece of cardboard foam. We have an external power brick, and again, it's quite a small power brick there. It's got a clip facility based onto the top of it, as well as regional plugs that let you attach EU, American, and of course British ones all on the end. Each one of these mesh routers has its own plug included with this device, and probably one of my favourite bits here is the paperwork bump. Now, don't get me wrong, I love trees, and I'm sure you love trees too, but it's worth noting there's some impressive stuff inside here. First and foremost, you've got your warranty. So obviously this device arrives with a warranty, as you'd expect, and I'm quite impressed with the 3 years manufacturer's warranty included with this device. On top of that, you have something, a service called WT Fast, or What the Fast, I imagine. And getting this device signed gives you the ability to have a What the Fast Gamers VPN account. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't get the full access that a complete subscription with WT Fast and its Gamers VPN gives you. But you do get a number of services included with this device completely for free. Do check it out. There is a NAS Compare article where I've hopefully detailed a lot more information about that. The hardware review will be published first, with the software review following shortly after. On top of that, we have got the first time setup guide there with the Wi-Fi helper and how to set the device up for the first time with your existing ISP, so they do hold your hand on that. And there is, of course, mobile applications available too for the first time setup. On top of that, we've got other languages available with that Wi-Fi guide. But probably my favourite bit is this. This is the multilingual instruction manual. And it's a book. Like, it's a proper book. And I know that's a silly thing to get so excited about. But very rarely do I see, like, a proper book manual. Now, I'm a man who's very old-fashioned. You know, don't get me wrong, I'm not the youngest, shockingly. But there's no denying I get a bit of a buzz from the idea of a product that comes, particularly an internet-level product as well, that arrives with such an impressively stacked manual. It's different languages, lots of troubleshooting, and lots of information about using the device for the first time. And it's pretty impressive. There's lots of stuff about finding the router app. There's lots of information about first-time setup. And it's quite a commitment from the brand to include this on what is ostensibly quite an affordable product, which is pretty much it for our accessories. Let's get that out of there. And let's take a good look at this device. And again, I do apologise. I'm going to get that light ramped up a little bit there. Let's take a look. Now, we're going to use one of these for our closer look. And as we've mentioned, we've got that lovely ventilation panel built into the top of it. This device has got a dual-core Qualcomm CPU inside for handling the traffic, as well as a gig of memory too. If we look at the sides of this device, and I'll bring that closer to camera, we can see, in terms of connectivity, an impressive array of ports. We have, first and foremost, we've got the power button. We have a reset button. We've obviously got the power port there, where we introduce our power. We have a WAN port on this, so that's where the internet comes into one of these, and 4 LAN ports. And I love that. I genuinely love the idea of 4 LAN ports on a mesh router. For those that remember, earlier in the summer, I did a bunch of reviews on different mesh solutions, none of which were Wi-Fi 6, and none of them arrived with 4 LAN ports. Every single one of them either arrived with 1 WAN and 1 LAN port, LAN being land area network, so basically connecting network devices, or you know, just a single port on each pod, and only the main device having 2 LAN ports. Every one of these, both of them I can highlight, arrive with multiple LAN ports on the rear. So that means if you set one of these up in your gamer den, your home media center, your office, whatever, you can connect 4 network devices to this, and they can communicate with the mesh network and the backhaul between these devices and transmit that data remarkably fast, with 4 more over there. And remember how affordable this device was. Sorry to sound all QVC, but it's still a pretty impressive price. Now, on another side, we don't have too much there. What we've got is a bit of ventilation, and that's your lot. On the next side, we have got the LEDs. Now, if I bring that forward, hopefully the light will carry that. We can see we've got multiple LEDs there, obviously for system access and system activity, but also individual lights for the frequencies. This device has 3 separate frequencies. We have our 2.4 gigahertz frequency, which I think gives us 400 megabits. On top of that, you have got 2 5 gigahertz frequencies, 1 and 2. One of them providing, I think, 867 megabits. I might have to check my notes there, but take my word for it, that's true. But then you've got the final one, and the final one is the one that is for our Wi-Fi 6 enabled connectivity. Now, that one gives us 4,804 megabits, or 4.8 gigabit wireless connectivity, and that's where our Wi-Fi 6 lives. Now, Wi-Fi 6 has a potential top limit of 10 gigabit, which again, we've talked about 10 GB enough on this channel, and 10 GBE wireless is phenomenal. But in order to get that, you need enough aerials, enough coverage, and effectively the right amount of power moving forward. This does not support up to that maximum threshold, but there are some out there that do, and we will feature one of those on the channel in the next 3 weeks. On the other side of this device, we have got USB ports and our WPS button. For those that aren't aware, the WPS button on a number of these devices is for quick, fast connectivity. Rather than using wireless passwords and SSIDs and stuff like that, you can enable it that some devices will just communicate using WPS buttons, and you can send a connection signal between this and another device where you can just one-click setup. Nice and easy for the first time. So that's where that comes in. Next, we've got those 2 USB ports, and yes, this device supports external storage too. It's got a little area of storage inside, I think 256 meg, and that's for storing the internal OS, but you can also run the software from it and some apps too. This device can make an external storage device, a connected USB drive that has to, if it's a bigger than 2.5-inch drive, then you will need its own power source. But the majority of flash USBs or a 2.5-inch external drive, you can make that drive network accessible with the connected mesh devices. On top of that, you can also run a download manager on this device like you would on a NAS and download files directly onto the external drive. So there are some NAS elements based on this. It should also be mentioned I'm going to be connecting this to an ASUS Store Nimbus Store 4 NAS device, so 2 ASUS devices, to show you, 1, how those ports support link aggregation, and 2, how we can merge the NAS platform with our mesh system and take advantage of increased connectivity. So again, very impressive there, but the next thing to talk about, of course, is the wireless connection. Now, these aerials here pull up, which I bloody love. I love that they are fold-in aerials. All the ones that normally arrive that are screw-in, they seem a little bit fiddly. And once you screw them in, anyone that's ever had to buy a mesh router or any router that has aerials you have to attach on manually, they say that you can point them in as many directions as you want. But there's no denying it that once you screw them in and you move them around, they feel a little loose. You know, when you turn them around, you're trying to adjust them so they point in certain directions. I'm sure one of you watching this has got a story like that. Please put it in the comments to back me up so I'm not going crazy. But these aerials are attached to this device at all times and they fold in. Don't get me wrong, they are plastic, they feel a little flimsy, and you can't bend them beyond the 90-degree angle, so I wouldn't advise doing that. But the very fact that you can fold them in like that is beautiful to me, and I love that. Now, the ventilation at the top keeps that CPU and the components cool, and on the base of the device, not only have you got rubberized feet for attaching this to a table that raise it slightly and keeps the cool air ventilated through it, but on top of that, you've got screw holes for wall mounting this device, which means it easily wall mount and allows you to create a high mesh area so it covers more. And if you're in a multi-story area, you may want to attach this to a ceiling or a corner wall towards the ceiling. So again, lovely support on that. And I know that seems a fantastically small thing to give this such credit for, but there's no denying it. That is something that's not present in a number of brands. They, simple screw holes. Come on, no-brainer. The majority of them, of the mesh routers I've ever seen for my tests and personally, always seem to be desk-mounted only. So the idea of wall mounting it just makes sense to me. Next, I want to talk about software, because of course this isn't just a brainless device. It actually supports a number of different software functions within itself, with loads of software pre-included for free. On top of that, you've got the usual things you'd expect from any router system: quality of service and quality of service settings, priority settings for individual LAN connections, as well as the ability to assign priority to different devices, wireless or LAN connected. But on top of that, you've got a bunch of ASUS only support settings. Now, I'm going to have to flick onto my notes here because there is genuinely that many. First and foremost, you've got the router security assessment tool, something I've only ever seen from one other mesh brand. And it basically runs a system check across all of your connected devices and your entire network environment and looks for vulnerabilities and then makes recommendations with which to patch those up within the software, not advising you to spend extra. There is no subscription fees built into this, and those that watched a number of my mesh router videos from the summer will know I have a particular hatred from companies that wrap up almost all of their settings behind a subscription system and really take advantage of particularly parents, not so much businesses, but parents who buy a router system and then find out that the simple security settings, which to me seem painfully obvious that they should be there, are behind a paywall. I know that's incredible, but loads of companies are doing that. On top of that, you've got malicious site auto detection and auto blocking. So one of the other cool features of this, and that's not just malicious attempts on the network and, for viruses and infections, but in terms of websites themselves where the vulnerabilities have been documented by, Google searches and more, and then, shared with brands, this device will intercept these websites before you get to them, and intercept the problems before your host system has to contend with them, and your host system has then to deploy protective measures. This this basically covers your entire network in advance before those things can happen, and will prevent you going to those websites, rather than just say, yeah, go at your own risk, just go for it, knock yourself out. It doesn't do that. That, along with that Gamers VPN service we talked about earlier, What the Fast, being bundled in as well. Now, along with those bespoke parental controls, there's the obvious stuff like guest networks, where you can create a sub-network on your router environment, so other users can then have their own Wi-Fi if you've got friends and family staying over, and you want to give them a Wi-Fi code, but you don't want to give them access to the farm, the whole place. You can create a guest network just for them with their own SSID and their own security credentials. But also you can meter that connection, assign it to only a small portion of the network, and prevent them having access to things like USB connected devices on this mesh system, or NASes and other things on the network, as well as assigning devices on the primary network to be priority versus the guest network. So if you've got some friends and family coming over, and your cousin or whatever, or your nephews come over, and all they want to do is stream Netflix, and you're starting to notice it on your network, you can make sure that the primary network can go, nope, less bandwidth for you. And that's essentially it. It is a very, very good device. And even if it wasn't mesh, let's pretend there was only one of these devices in this box. If it was just this one on its own, I'd still kind of recommend it. Maybe not at 350 quid. But given that this on its own is 200 quid to buy on its own, at £200, this is really impressive. I've already written up my Wi-Fi 6 NAS Compare article, where I talked about the best mesh Wi-Fi 6 router for price, for value, for software, for power, and for ease. This isn't on that list, but it may well be. If it is on that list in the next 2 weeks, you'll know that it's because the software review impressed me that much. But I can't put it on there yet until I've tested that software for myself, which is why this is only a hardware review, and I'm looking forward to doing the software review very, very soon. Now, do stay tuned for my video on Wi-Fi 6, where I talk about exactly why Wi-Fi 6 is what it is and why it's a big deal. Everything from the fact that the communication has now upped the average packet from 10-bit to 10-bit from 8-bit, the fact that there's considerably more waves at once of data in every single frequency wave. On top of that, you've got the business of data being delivered in large packets, so lots of data in every transaction rather than one at a time. And Wi-Fi 6 on each device then knows that this data being sent here, that is a collaboration of data, when it reaches here, can be unpacked at the other end. There are so many things about Wi-Fi 6 that I'm looking forward to telling you about, but I'm not going to put it in this video because this is already coming on at 23 minutes long, and I better wrap things up. I am going to do a software review of this device, but in terms of hardware, it is pretty unbeatable, particularly for a 4-antenna Wi-Fi 6 mesh router. Do stay tuned for the software review. Check out the NAS Compare article in the description, and if you are interested, do stay tuned for my best of the years being published very soon. I will see you guys next time.